Hi there, I'm Wonia Thibault from Season 6 of Alone on the History Channel, and we are getting close to the premiere date. So every day as the premiere approaches, I'm doing a little talk about something involved with my preparations for my time going out into the Arctic. So I already posted a video that I took in May of last year before really launching into my preparations, just kind of recording my baseline body at that point before I started messing with it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that process, and before I gave an overview of what my plans were about it, but now I want to talk about how that actually went. So when it was looking like I was likely to go to Alone, I just acted as if it was going to happen so that I could launch into my preparations right away. And the first thing that I did was doing a ketogenic diet. And what ketogenic diet is basically really low in carbohydrates. So you're getting the majority of your calories from fat and from protein, but more from fat. And what it is, it's entering a metabolic state where your body starts to convert fats into things called ketones and burns ketones for energy rather than carbohydrates for energy, which is what our bodies normally do when we're taking carbohydrates in. So I did that because it's usually kind of a difficult transition to go from that carbohydrate state to that ketogenic state, and there's something called the keto flu that can make people feel really ill, and especially if it's the first time they've ever experienced that, it can really take you out for a little while, and I didn't want to experience that while I was out. So I decided to get my body used to the process of ketosis before going, and that was a really good choice, I feel like. Also, for over a year before I was even contacted by the Alone show about applying, I had already been doing a practice called Intermittent Fasting, which is a really good thing for all kinds of things in your body. It's really good for cellular repair, and it can help with a lot of chronic issues because digestion is hard work for your body, and giving yourself long periods of time where your body isn't working to digest gives it extra energy to put towards other processes like repair. So it's also really good for just being more comfortable with being hunger, and it can really help people who have blood sugar imbalances to kind of stabilize their system so they don't get hangry and they don't have energy drops and they don't get insulin spikes. Those things weren't really issues for me, but still it felt like a really good practice for my body, and I feel like that practice did give me resiliency, and it made me more comfortable with being hungry and the discomfort of hunger. It's something that I'm used to, even in environments that aren't as stressful as being alone in the wilderness for a long period of time, which is not to say that I actually found it particularly stressful while I was out. I had an amazing experience, but yes, it's certainly a different situation, and it can be a stressor to be on your own in the wilderness, getting your own food, period. So adding a stressor like getting used to ketosis and getting used to chronic hunger potentially, you know, it's better to have some more experience with that going in. So I found that between the ketogenic diet and the intermittent fasting, I felt well prepared for dealing with those discomforts, and my metabolism didn't have a lot of issues with switching into that ketogenic state. Also, another important thing was bulking up, which is kind of the exact opposite of what intermittent fasting and ketosis do for you. Ketosis tends to be something that people lose weight on, like the Atkins diet is loosely based on being in a ketosis state. So I only did those early on in my preparations, so like pre-May and June. And once June came, I started hitting the calories. And that was pretty hard for me because I have a really healthy diet and I don't eat a lot of carbohydrates, but carbohydrates tend to be what put weight on more. So I was eating a lot more breads and grains and that kind of thing, and definitely tried to do it with hitting the sweets and ice cream and that kind of thing. And that was successful to some degree, and there was some degree to which it backfired because I'm such a healthy person and have such a healthy lifestyle that my body was just like, what are you doing? And sometimes when I would try to pack on weight by like eating a bunch of ice cream, it would just go right through, which is counterproductive and pretty uncomfortable. So I found that my body really kind of laid down the law with me, and I wasn't able to just go crazy and eat a bunch of fattening foods and damage my body. And I ended up feeling like that was good because it helped me have some kind of balance. I did manage to put on a fair amount of weight, and you can see that in my profile pictures that are up on the History Channel website, and all of the photos they post of the group. It was definitely a good deal heftier than I was in the video from May and than I am now. But yeah, there was a limit to what I could do, and I ended up feeling like that was probably better for me because I didn't want to be unhealthy. I wanted to be strong and fit, but with a lot of extra weight. So speaking of strong and fit, another thing that I did is I actually went to a personal trainer for the summer to really get myself strong and to put weight on in a good way that wasn't going to be detrimental to my body. So I tried to focus more on strength and weight type things rather than cardio things, just because I didn't want to be working so hard to put weight on and then burning it off. But that said, I did do some amount of cardio. That's the kind of exercise that I tend to like. I like high intensity interval training. So yeah, it was quite a thing to try to keep myself from doing that kind of work. But I really felt like the personal training was great for improving my strength. I did a lot around being able to pull my bow. I was worried about getting weak while I was out and not being able to pull my bow. So yeah, it did a lot for me so that I was able to put on weight both in muscle mass and with extra fat while still maintaining a relatively healthy system. So yeah, and then like I kind of mentioned, the other part was just the interesting social experiment of what it is in this culture to be trying to put on weight when you have people obsessed with losing weight and being super skinny. Sometimes when I'd be at the gym with my personal trainer and I'd be like, hey, I put on 3 pounds this week. She'd be like, oh my God, keep your voice down. People are gonna wanna beat you up. Like, you can't say that out loud. And she didn't know what I was doing, so she thought I was crazy. And that's the other thing, is putting on weight on purpose, but not being able to talk about why I was putting on weight. It was just an interesting social, cultural, emotional experiment to do that thing that our culture is so anti and not be able to talk about why, and that it was on purpose and it was actually an important survival strategy. So yeah, that's a little background on some of the physical things that I did to prepare for Alone Season 6 and how they went. So to sum up, yeah, I played with my metabolism. I got it used to ketosis and being really hungry. I think that's a black-headed grosbeak. Maybe not. We'll see. I'm always stopping my taping for bird calls. Where was I? Okay, so getting used to hunger and ketosis, putting on extra weight, and making sure I went in really strong and fit. And those preparations felt good and felt like a really good strategy for me, so I'm happy that I did them. And for more details, you're just gonna have to watch because I can't say anything else. Totally not a black-headed grosbeak. I'm not sure who that is. I have to keep paying attention. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to sharing more of my exciting solo Arctic venture with you. Hi, folks. Well, it is a few weeks after the premiere of Alone and after I posted a bunch of videos about my preparations leading up to Alone. And someone brought to my attention, and I'm really glad they did, some of the languaging and the ways I talk about my physical preparation perpetuate some things about our culture that I don't want to be perpetuating. So I wanted to address that and add this into that video talking about my preparations. And what that is essentially is the way our culture holds weight and fat and people who are naturally heavier than the beauty standard that our culture holds. Most cultures have a particular beauty standard, and it's super subjective. Different in different cultures around the world, different throughout time. There have been periods of European history where big and curvy and voluptuous was absolutely the beauty standard, and people who were skinny were totally frowned upon. And today it's kind of the opposite, and I think that sucks. I would love to see a world where we hold all bodies as beautiful if they are in their healthiest natural state for them. And for some people, that is a lot heavier than the culture tells us we're supposed to be. And for some people, it's a lot slenderer than our culture tells us we're supposed to be. So when I'm talking about things like ketosis and intermittent fasting, I was doing those for health reasons and not for weight reasons. right? I think it's important to be resilient in terms of calories, and I think that it's good to have a mind towards eating what is the right amount to feed your body, but ketosis doesn't mean starving yourself, and it can be done in a way that builds you rather than burns your fat. Mostly it's about building muscle and not building fat, which is why I didn't want to do it while prepping for Alone. But the same with intermittent fasting. It's not necessarily a weight loss thing. You can eat just as much, take in as many calories, you're just doing it for a shorter period of the day, so you have more time between eating where your body can do these cellular repair processes and other things that it can't do while it's actively digesting. And there's a plane overhead, so maybe I'll pause for a moment. I also talk about how it was a little bit emotionally difficult for me to put on weight during that time, and that's true. But it's because I believe that putting on weight is a bad thing. Really, it's that I still have this deep internal conditioning that our culture has about fat being bad. But in that situation, that was exactly what I wanted. It was my survival advantage, and that's been true for humans throughout time, which is why rounder, curvier people have been seen as more attractive throughout a lot of human history, because those people have a survival advantage. It's a good thing, and it's a beautiful thing to put more weight on. That said, we all kind of have a natural set point where we feel best in our body, and I was trying to go beyond that set point. So when I'm talking about not feeling comfortable putting extra weight on, that's not about a particular amount of weight, it's about what works best for my body and how I feel most comfortable. And I'm going to be honest, I have some internalized fat shaming and fat phobia that doesn't serve me and that I don't want. You know, my natural build is pretty muscular and pretty round. You know, I naturally am going to have a bit more padding than a lot of people do, and that's my natural build, and I'm strong and fit like that. And then I was trying to take it even beyond that and get even rounder and carry even more weight, and it was hard for me, and I think that's unfortunate. I think it would be much better if all of us could really love our bodies just how they are, and self-care, self-love, and taking good care of our bodies, that is absolutely one of my highest values and what I was trying to be an example of out there and in the world in general. So I realized that I really wanted to be more explicit about that in this video and really speak to the vulnerable thing that it is to put weight on in a culture that is hugely fat phobic and fat shaming. It is an emotional thing, and people do respond to you differently, and that's really unfortunate. You know, you have no idea what's going on inside a person, and our culture just really judges people and their bodies in ways that I don't think are helpful. And so I wanted just to speak to that and share that perspective so that it's clear that when I'm talking about how I feel about, you know, healthy eating and ways that I was trying to play with my physiology and my metabolism, that was around a specific person and towards health, and not just about being skinny as the main goal, because that isn't true for me. And as you see, watching Alone, you see people who go in pretty heavy and then come out often way below their set point, and that's an emotional and a physiological roller coaster, and one a lot of people in our culture don't understand, because we have this thing that losing weight is supposed to be a good thing, and when you are in a survival situation, it is not, and it's really disorienting to have all of these opinions and how people interact with us around, you know, gaining weight is always a bad thing and losing weight is always a good thing. That is not the case. Nor is it the healthiest thing, nor is it the most beautiful thing. So, yeah, it felt really important to bring that in as well, and to add that into my video talking about my physical preparations and just the vulnerable truth about trying to undo, you know, a lifetime of deep conditioning about how I'm supposed to feel about my body in different states. And I want to be an example of holding in the best possible way self-love, self-care, health, whatever your body looks like, at the center. Thanks, everybody.